Norman Liss. The name of the program is The Way to Go, and I invite you each week at this time to join me as we explore places to go and things to do. We're going to escape today. We're going to take a short escape because we're talking about a book that's called Short Escapes Near New York City. And my guest today is Bruce Bolger, who is co-author of this. The title of your book, Short Escapes, you previously did one on England and France, and now you've come home to the United States and to New York City, which is the area that you and Gary Stoller, your co-author, live in this area. Why Short Escapes? How do Short Escapes describe what the books are about?
Well, the whole idea today, Norman, everybody's working so hard, dual income families and whatnot, less time for vacation. The idea is to take a small segment of time and really escape, really get away. And the only way to do that is to go to a place and stay there, spend a little time. The old way of travel for Americans is to go from place to place. Mm-hmm. Well, the idea here is instead of getting in your car and driving, get out and stop. Park your car and walk. Not necessarily even hike, but walk and get to know an area really well.
But when you say short escapes, what do you mean? How close to New York City are the places that you describe in this book?
Well, all of our experiences, as we like to call them, the 25 that are in the book, are within an hour and a half of New York City, of Manhattan, or I should say 90% of them are. So the idea is you can go for a day, but we also provide bed and breakfasts and also listings of other neat attractions to do nearby. So you can go and walk and explore the ruins of a forgotten place, walk into a little village that very few people know about, and then go for a great restaurant and maybe for a romantic bed and breakfast as well, all on the doorstep, of course.
I'm intrigued by the fact that this is just not another guidebook. There are two elements of it which are unique. One is that every section, every one of the 25 different places that you talk about, you have a stark background on them. You give a feeling of the place. So even before you start walking, you're steeping yourself in the history of the place and the feeling of the place. Was that a definite purpose in designing the book to do that?
Well, it's a short escape. In other words, it becomes a little bit of a fantasy. Our point is with this book is that we all think we have to go to Europe or to Mexico or Central America to experience the past. We think of North America as being very young, but we're actually thousands of years old. And right where we live and where our homes are today, there was a whole civilization, a very successful civilization of people who lived here. And then even on to that, after that, the white man came and the colonials. They've left traces everywhere, and we just drive by them and spend thousands of dollars to go to Europe or Disneyland when they're right here, right next to New York, and we show you where they are.
The second thing that intrigues me is that this is a book for walkers. This is a book for hikers, would you say?
No, we've actually specifically made it so, yes, hikers can really use this book. Somebody who's not that well acquainted with the New York area, who likes to walk 5 miles or so in an afternoon or a day outing, will find this a tremendous basis. But we've also designed this for people who can't walk more than or don't want to walk more than 200 yards, because we tell shortcuts and ways to go to the special ruins, the beautiful view, the great picnic spot, the historic spot. There are places in this walk where somebody with a crutches could go.
I know a lot of places. I know a lot of places in the area that you cover, and yet there are things that describe the areas that I know and have things that I never knew were there. How do you get to determine this? How do you find these things, and then how do you determine those things that you're going to write about?
Well, there are many different ways, but the simple fact is that everywhere around us are magical things, and if you pick any particularly beautiful spot, you can almost always find a history there by going to the Historical Society, by going to the library. Most towns and villages have a town historian, and they are more or less keepers of the information. What's surprising, by the way, Norman, about America compared to Europe, where we've also done research, is how little Americans know, how little we know of what happened in our own village. Most people don't know, since, for instance, at Dobbs Ferry, where my offices are, that the office building where we are is on the site of a huge Indian village. I mean, this was, if they had left ruins, it would have been on the order of a Mayan ruin, but they built things of wood, as we do today, and so these things have perished. But they were there, and we have places in the book where we can take you where there was an Indian fort, and you're walking somewhere around you. Indians lived for thousands of years.
Where is that?
That is Schunemunk Mountain. And Schunemunk Mountain is no more than an hour and change from Manhattan. The views from the top of Schunemunk Mountain, and that is a longer walk. You want to be a little bit fit for that.
Where exactly is that?
Schunemunk Mountain is near Highland Falls, New York. It's not too far from West Point. I would say about 8 to 10 miles from West Point, but it's very easy to get to.
I have to admit, I never heard of it.
Well, and yet Schunemunk Mountain is actually a very important mountain historically in the region. It figures, and the area around there figures in all aspects of colonial civilization, and mostly Indian or Native American. Schunemunk Mountain had the last remaining settlement, intact Indian settlement, before they had been, essentially eliminated from the area. So it's actually, and there's a lot of lore that is associated with the area. It's a special place.
And on the other hand, where I never heard of that, Piermont, which is one of my favorite finds, I didn't know what I learned from this book about it. You did a lot of research to get all that information. You say you talked to historical societies. Is it a long process to find out such a vast amount of information in there it's amazing?
It's funny because there is, but what makes it easy, first off, is that we're always looking for our angle is always the same. We want to do two things. We want you to escape. We want you, when you're walking or strolling, to be able to shut out the present and go back in time. And you can. And in our Europe books especially, we take you to places that take you very literally back into time. There's no one else there. And if you read the narrative and you're familiar with the story, it is easy to imagine that you're standing where a colonial was, or where Washington Irving walked 150 years ago, or where Walt Whitman conceived one of his most beautiful poems in Long Island. And so the idea is we are always looking for an angle that will bring you closer to a place. So, for instance, when we had this lovely walk in Long Island, we go into, obviously Walt Whitman walked there. He refers to it in a poem that he wrote shortly before he died as one of the magical special places of his life, and it's there pretty much unchanged from his time. So so it's easy to narrow in on something special like that.
We talked about the research and talked about the descriptives. I suppose that your purpose in giving this detail is before you go in there, you are set for the time frame that you're going into, and you set your mind before you see physically what you're going to see, and that's why you give all those details. Was that your goal? Was that your objective?
Exactly. The idea, the way the book is, we believe that travelers, especially people going on a long voyage, but anyone going off even for a day trip, should be daydreaming about where they're going. It should be a special thing that gets them through their work week. Think of it when you're going on vacation. You're daydreaming. If you're planning a trip to Europe, you're planning and you're thinking about what you're going to see, or even going to Bermuda or San Juan, wherever it might be. People tend to daydream, and we say, in a sense, or what we've discovered with Short Escapes near New York City, is that you can do this on a weekend. You don't have to get on an airplane. You can go to a B&B where you have a jacuzzi. You can sit in a jacuzzi and have a view up the Hudson River Valley with mountains all around you for an amount of money that most people, could afford, especially during the week. So, yes, it's all part of this idea of escaping.
Let's talk about some of the specifics that intrigue you, and then I'll talk about some that intrigue me, some of the descriptives. In your table of contents, I think you bring your readers in by not only naming the place, but giving it a title. Talk about some of those.
Well, you put me on the spot on remembering titles.
Let me throw some at you then.
But the titles are designed to do just that.
Well, let's talk about a forgotten people. We talked about the Schunemunk people. You have one here, a living exhibit in the Sissing Mountain. I never heard of that, and That's in Dutchess County.
Well, the wonderful thing about Stissing Mountain, we talk about bringing things to life. Up in the Museum of Natural History in New York City, there's been a display for many, many years of the New York topography, and there is one particular diorama that has been there for many, many years, if it hasn't been since removed, which shows the Hudson River Valley with Stissing Mountain in the center of it, in a sense. It's a very unique geographic or geological feature. So we thought that was fun. Well, for all of you kids who've now grown up who were led to this exhibit and saw it and kind of maybe thought nothing of it, why not we take you to that exhibit? And sure enough, it's an unspoiled area. In the 30 years since that exhibit or diorama was made, or whatever length of time, the area is still beautiful and magnificent. And most New Yorkers don't take the time to discover these areas.
And it doesn't take a lot of time to do it, and that's the point that you make. These are really short escapes, as you call them. So it's not something you have to commit a great deal of time. Isn't it true that people are taking shorter vacations anyway, or not going on long trips generally?
Well, there is actually a big return based on a lot of anecdotal evidence toward, for instance, the old tradition of renting a house, a vacation home. I understand in Cape Cod, for instance, the bookings have never been better in recent years. This year may have been a record year this past summer for rentals. And I think the reason for that is that we do have a very pressed life. We are very harried today, and people need to be able to get away for shorter periods of time. And there are many guidebooks and many, many fine guidebooks, but what we felt was needed were guidebooks that took you to one place. And of course, we've given you a choice of 25, and we give you a choice of 25 in every region where our books are published, so that you can really get to know it. And they're not just walks, of course. In addition to the B&Bs and restaurants, you have other historical sites, like a monastery that people may not know about, a Buddhist monastery, for instance, or a special place for crafts. There's a whole village called Sugarloaf where there are nothing but crafts.
Where is that?
That's up near Goshen, New York, not far from Chinook Mountain, or near Warwick, which is another place. It's near one of the places featured in our book. So the idea is this is not just for walkers. Go out, have your stroll, and then go to a neat museum or go to a special place. Or there's a lot of course, Revolutionary War battlefields all around this area, and old canals, and the ruins of a lost railroad in the mountains. All sorts of wonderful things to visit.
I'm particularly intrigued by, in Connecticut, you talk about a utopian dream, Guilford, Connecticut. Utopian dream. What is a utopian dream? Before you get into that, we're talking today about a book, Short Escapes Near New York City, and the author is Bruce Bolger, who's a co-author. And the book is a very interesting book because it allows you to go into places nearby and see things that you're unable to see anywhere else. So, Bruce, let's get back to that now. Let's talk about Guilford, Connecticut, and the utopian dream. Why that name?
Well, history that is passed down to us through our classrooms always seems to, because sound bites apply to history as well, we remember the Pilgrims and as being the first white settlers in America. Well, actually, the Pilgrims were really just part of a huge movement, and that was maybe the most noteworthy one, but a huge movement of really idealists, very brave young men and women, and ironically often quite wealthy, people with a lot to lose, who for utopian reasons came to this country to found a new civilization based on their dream. And it was a 6-week voyage, and even though these people had a lot of money, they were building these communities out of virgin forests. They were oftentimes negotiating in not necessarily good faith with Native Americans who were not stupid and saw when they were getting cheated, and there were a number of numerous battles. There was tremendous risk for these people, and yet they came with a dream. It wasn't just for money by any means. Many of them were comfortable, as was the gentleman who led his troop of followers to come to Guilford. And his home is still there from 1637 or so, and the lands that they had used, these are woodlands that were basically not used day-to-day for farming, but there they quarried rock, and there's some old roads there that lead to some places to get salt hay. So you go back into those woods, and there is no question that you are walking in an area very much undisturbed over hundreds of years, where, again, there have been Native Americans for thousands of years, the Montauk Indians, and then, of course, these very early colonialists. And by the way, the village is quite intact. The town, this square, has been voted one of the most beautiful villages in New England. There's some excellent restaurants and B&Bs nearby, and it's an hour and a half from, maybe an hour and 45 minutes from mid-Manhattan.
In finding all of these places, do you have favorites? Or do you love all your children?
Well, we love all of our children, and hopefully we love them in different ways. The love is always the same, and so it is difficult. I have favorites for different things. I have my favorite view, which is Mount Taurus.
Where is that?
Mount Taurus is right near Cold Spring. And the view was actually captured by a famous 19th century Hudson River School painter. It is a moderate walk to get to the top. It's anybody can do it, but it might seem a little daunting. It takes you by some beautiful ruins people don't think of ruins, but yes, indeed, there are ruins nearby of a 1920s elaborate mansion, which has fallen completely into the forest, but is nonetheless clearly there. And you're on a road that was probably built about 250 years ago at one point. And then you go up to a view where you can see Manhattan and the Catskills and the Hudson River as it winds its way through the Hudson River Gorge, as it's called in that area, and the mountains to the north. It is breathtaking. And you're walking, in places that have been tread upon for thousands of years. And you see the remains of the old farms in the forest.
When you talk about your favorite, I can see that warm feeling. Give me another favorite.
Well, it's almost a little bit unfair in the sense that my partner, Gary Stoller, has also explored. We, as you know, did every walk in the book, or just about every walk. We have a couple of contributors who are also themselves experienced walkers and know history and how to rate B&Bs and restaurants. But out on Long Island, there's Hither Hills, which is a place that so few people know about. And there's some great stories. There was actually a cowboys there. There was a huge cattle ranch there. And now it is a land of forest and freshwater ponds and dune lands. They're probably the most dramatic dunes south of Cape Cod are there, and it's an area completely intact. On a beautiful day, you're surrounded by deep blue water and deep green trees and sand dunes, and then you're right next to the raging surf of the ocean, just a short walk away. So that's another special.
As I listen to you, I get this great feeling of enthusiasm, and this is not just places that you're writing about. These are places that you really feel, and this feeling of sharing them through your books. I understand that because that's what I do in this program, is share the information of things that interest me with others. It must be a great feeling to know that you've discovered these places or uncovered these places and then have researched them so intensively. Another thing that I like about your books are the maps. You give your maps and your directions. You give an overview and then a very detailed map of actually where to walk and where it is. Because I guess you're trying to make it easy for everybody.
That's it. The book isn't for hikers. The book is for hikers, I should say. But for hikers, this book is as easy as pie. But the idea is to make hiking, or the things that hikers already know about, accessible to everybody. And let me say, in fairness, that many of the special places here have long been known by the hikers. In fact, the trails that are built to them are built by volunteers of the New York and New Jersey Trail Conference. And those thousands of volunteers, I think, are really unsung heroes of the region who are keeping access to these special places very accessible. We have one of the most remarkable trail systems in the world. There are nearly 1,000 miles of blazed, carefully maintained trails within a 2-hour drive in any direction of Manhattan, and many by these volunteers. So we haven't discovered them. What we're trying to do is bring them to life. Even I know that a lot of the experienced hikers, because I know some of them, won't know the history that we have in these walks.
That is one of the very interesting parts of it, is that they don't know the background, although they may know the area.
Well, generally, for some reason, all the guides for hikers always talk about the geography and the geology. So they'll tell you the fauna and the flora and the rock formations. And then the great book of all time is a New York, New Jersey Trail, New York walk book, it's called, the great walk book of all time. Really, it's set this great standard. And even it, although it has some beautiful lore and history, and it has that focus on flora and fauna, we have a little of that in here. Our real focus is to bring it to life from the point of view of the people who lived there, or still do live there.
And this book is published by Fodor's, the famous tour people.
Yes, Fodor's decided that they want to make a major commitment in the walking area, and they're not a mountaineer publishing company. So this was a way, I can't speak for them, of course, but Fodor's was interested in this, I believe, as a way to bring a line of walk books into the mainstream.
Now, your first two books were a few years ago, and now you have this one. Do you have more in the works?
Yes, we do. We have Short Escapes.
Gets in your blood, doesn't it?
Yeah, and pretty soon I'll need to escape. Short Escapes in New England is coming out, and that'll be 25 country getaways for people who love to walk. And then the France book and the Great Britain book are being revised right now, and they will be out also with brand new listings, and all the walks have been checked, and some of them have been changed and updated and whatnot. So
you have to do that in a guidebook, don't you? You have to check it constantly because things do change, don't they?
But people don't realize that. They don't realize that there are human beings that go out and do this. We're not sitting on the telephone. We are out there, and it isn't as glorious and glamorous as it seems. If you're in France for 10 days, you're in a forced march to get that work done, and it has to be done right, because otherwise someone's going to be very annoyed if they get lost or go to a lousy B&B. So it's a lot of work, but as you pointed out, sharing special places, and we've already gotten letters and feedback from people, phone calls, where we've given them a special experience. You know, a song gives you a special experience when you hear it, and to think of the gratification a composer gets. Well, we get that same gratification when we take somebody for a special escape.
But you're doing something else. You've got another book in the works, which is not a Short Escapes book.
Well, actually it is. That's called, thank you, Best Beach Vacations, and that's actually published by Frommer's, which is another major travel guide company, and that is out now. Best Beach Vacations Hawaii, Best Beach Vacations California, and Best Beach Vacations Florida. And we're coming out with 3 new editions next year. And those tour escapes, we take you to 25 special beaches. We've rated them. We explain all the amenities, the restaurants, the hotels nearby, where to rent a boogie board or a wave runner, where to go hiking, or the history nearby. Those are for beach escapes.
And there are people who specifically, just as there are walkers or hikers, as you may call them for this book, there are people who are fans, enthusiasts of beach vacations.
Well, 70% of all vacation travelers, according to travel statistics, go to a beach vacation from time to time. Rate that as one of their favorite things to do. So, and there's a lot more to a beach than just laying on the beach, and you discover that in our book. There are a lot of things to do.
The book writing, book packaging business, which you're into, is a relatively new career for you, although you've been involved in writing for many, many years. It opens up a new world, doesn't it?
Oh, it certainly does. You get to know so many people, and yes, it's very hard work, and very few people ever get rich writing travel books. You don't do it for that. You do it for some of those pleasures I mentioned before, and you meet so many people, and you learn so many things. It makes you the more you learn about different cultures and about different places, it makes you incredibly tolerant, and it makes you very open-minded, I find, and life becomes just a great big plate of a buffet of a marvelous smorgasbord or whatever of different delights. And traveling the world and exploring all these places is a very humbling experience, actually, and special.
There are more, I assume, and on and on and on, more book ideas, because you've learned how to do successful books now. You know that people are interested in the things that you're interested in. I can relate to that because this program is an outgrowth of my interests, and your books are outgrowths of your interests.
Well, although you have to keep your readers in mind, your customers in mind. Actually, an old marketer once said to me, never judge the customer by yourself. And actually, and Best Beach Vacations is an example of that. I myself am not. I like going to the beach. Every year I go to the beach with my family numerous times, but it isn't a focal point for me personally, but it is for other people. And so it is fun, even if you yourself don't relate to something. And I will tell you, I've now visited some terrific beaches, but it's not always a personal thing. It's oftentimes, and it becomes a business too, of course, a way to make a living.
I must say that coming back to Short Escapes in New York City, I do an enormous amount of things in this area. probably more than 90% of the people. And yet, when I look at this book, I would say that 85 to 90% of the places are things that I have never visited, or if I have done that, I have not seen them the same way that you have. What's the technique? How do you find that? How do you determine that?
Well, it's actually a strategy, because we know that people, again, they're busy. They don't have a lot of time. So we always want to take them near something that they feel they should see. For instance, this book, by the way, is also geared for foreign travelers or out-of-towners who are coming to New York and who want to get away for a day, rent a car, where to go, what to do. So this will be distributed all around.
It's new. It's just come out.
Yes, it has. It's just been out for the last week.
And I'm sure it's in bookstores everywhere. And
it is in all major bookstores, certainly in the New York area, and in many English-speaking bookstores throughout the world.
It's great to have a book like this because of the areas and the vistas that it opens up for you, and there must be a certain amount of tremendous pride in knowing that you're like an educator. You're more than a guide. You're an educator. You're someone who both of you're taking people to places that they never would have gone to before. It's like when I go on a walking tour to a place that I've never been to, and I see things. I pass them every day. A walking tour in Manhattan, and I've seen them every day, and yet I don't know these places because I don't know the details that someone who has done the amount of research that you have done has done. It's really intriguing, and I am so delighted that you came here and talked to us about Short Escapes near New York City. A great book, and I think that you've done a great job. We've been talking about Short Escapes near New York City, and Bruce Bolger, who is co-author, has come and talked to us about it. It is a fascinating book. Look at it, read it. You'll enjoy it, experience it. And I'm Norman Liss, and the name of the program is The Way to Go. Until next week at this time, enjoy yourself.